All right, good morning. We're into the second week of January. This is January 11th, and it's the time of the farm show. And so maybe we'll get snowstorms and whatever. Who knows? We don't know the future. The Bible doesn't tell us the future except to say there will be a future, and God has planned some good things. And that's a good thing. I have a birthday. I don't know whether it's happened or not, but my daughter's birthday was on January 9th, and so they were going to do a surprise birthday. Now, she wasn't supposed to know about it, but it was supposed to be good, so I haven't gotten the word back whether that happened or not on January 9th, but that was this past week. My wife was going to be in Virginia on that, and see what happens. So we'll have to wait and hear what is going to be. But anyway, we're looking at Luke chapter 15 and a little bit of Acts chapter 2. And I'm only going to refer to Acts chapter 2 a little bit. It really doesn't fit with Luke chapter 15. They made it fit, but I don't think it really fits with it. But anyway, Luke chapter 15 has a parable of Jesus. I told you about this a couple weeks ago. A parable that's really three parables. And what he's doing is building for a finish that he wants. Now, if you read the beginning verse of Luke chapter 15, and you did this 2 weeks ago. No, 4 weeks ago now. 4 weeks ago. He told the story about the lost sheep. This week he's telling a story about the lost son. He could have told the middle story, which is about the lost coin, and I'm going to refer to those a little bit. But this is how chapter 15 begins. Now all the tax collectors and sinners, remember we talked about sinners last week? Yeah. Sinners were coming near to listen to him. Who's the him? Jesus. There was something about Jesus that drew them. Now, he called them sinners. He called them tax collectors. As a matter of fact, he had one tax collector who was one of his disciples. That's Matthew. So what was it about him that they felt comfortable coming to him, even though he said, you folks need to change, okay? You need something new in your lives. The tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to him. And the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling and saying, this fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them. Yeah. In other words, you got this one group that feels rejected, and you got the other group that does the rejecting. And they're both coming to hear Jesus. One to complain, and the others because they found something about Jesus that gives them hope for the future. So, and he told them this parable. Now, if you go from that to the next one, which it ends up there, it says, then Jesus said there was a man. No blank between it, no space between it. It goes right into the second story. And likewise in the third story, he does it the same way. I'm trying to find where it starts. Oh, okay. Then Jesus said there was a man. Okay. One right after the other. Now, why is he doing this? Because he's building a story. Now, we'll review just a little bit of it. The first one is there was a man with 100 sheep. One of them wandered off, got lost. I got to go find that sheep. Now, if you think about the next phrase in that parable is, and he left the 99 in the wilderness and went after the lost one. That is not good farming technique. If you've got 99 sheep, because one wandered off and you had 100 with that one, and it wandered off, would it be smart to leave your 99 to wander off too? No. Would it be smart to leave your 99 to be eaten by the wolves? No. Why does he do it? Because he's emphasizing not good farming, but good love. That God who cares will do whatever is necessary to rescue his loved ones. And so he says the man left them, not because he doesn't like those sheep, but because they were not the ones that wandered off. He wanted to go for the one that wandered. We would say, hey, you're going to lose some sheep, don't worry about it. No, I cannot forfeit even one, I will go and find it. And so he goes, and he finds it, and then he comes back. And he goes banging on his neighbors' houses and says, hey, come over and have a feast with me. I found my lost sheep. Wait a minute. It's going to cost you more to put this feast on than it did to do without the sheep. You see, what he's doing is he's exaggerating that. But the Pharisees could identify with that. Now, they would say, we are like the 99, you know. We are the good sheep. Mm-hmm. Yes, we are not like that sheep. And says, whereas the sinners and publican says, yeah, I blew it. I went away. And says, now, economically, if you save a sheep, Pharisees say, not a bad deal. Everything's okay. All right, not a bad deal. Now, the next story he talks about is a woman who had 10 coins. Not 100 sheep, but 10 coins. Those 10 coins were big coins. They're valuable, like silver dollars or doubloons. So she lost one. Well, way to go, woman. You lost a coin. Are you ashamed of yourself? Yeah, you should have taken care of it. If you put things away, you wouldn't lose them, right? Wouldn't that be what we'd say? Well, Jesus is not trying to teach anything else except that there was a lost coin. And she wanted that coin. And so it wasn't like the other coins could wander off. The 9 coins, she can put them on a shelf. Hopefully she'll remember where they put them. But she'll go sweeping the house and all the dust out of the place and finds that coin. And then you know what she does? She calls in her neighbors and spends all the value of that coin to have a party to find the coin. You see, that doesn't make sense. Showing the joy of recovering what was lost and is now found. Now, the Pharisees could identify. Yeah, money is money, baby. And money talks, nobody walks. So, yeah, can understand that. Yeah. Then he tells the third story. And that's the longest story. There was a father who had 2 sons. And the younger one said to his father, Pop, give me the stuff that's coming to me. I'm bored with this farm. I want to go out and live. Now, he's not the oldest. The oldest son gets 2/3 of the farm. Because he was born first. He gets 2/3. The rest of it gets divided up with the rest of the people. You know. Now there's only just the 2 sons, so he's getting 1/3. And the father does that. Now, theoretically, you don't get your inheritance till your father dies. This is a story that Jesus is trying to tell to make some sense out of things. The father is still alive. He gives his money, the inheritance to the son. That means, if you want to look at it as a banker, he has to sell some of his equity in the farm. Maybe mortgage it a little bit and stuff. The son goes off and it says he wasted the money in riotous living. Doesn't tell what the riotous living was, but we can kind of imagine what it was. He was down at the Cabina, I can't even pronounce the nightclub in New York City that burned to the ground with so many people. Copacabana and stuff like that. So anyway, he ends up broke. And he has no money, he has no food, and he has no place to stay. So he puts him out to a farmer who raises pigs. Again, they're a disgusting animal to the Jewish people. To be called a pig, in our language, isn't to be credited, fine, but pigs are really not bad animals. They're smart animals. They don't have sweat glands, so they roll in mud. Cools them off. They never eat to be sick. I lost a horse one time because it ate so much it killed itself. Pig won't do that. Cow will do it. I remember we had a cow that got into some green grass, and we had to poke a jackknife in the side of her to let the gas out because she was going to strangle her. Imagine that, and it rolled, and so we had to hold that jackknife in there. And when the vet came, he put a pipe in that let that gas out, saved that cow. You know, cows will do it, horses will do it. Dogs will eat stuff that'll kill them and stuff. Pig is very picky about it. But pigs were considered an unclean animal, so you couldn't eat them. And here is this good Jewish boy. Well, good Jewish boy? No, this is bad Jewish boy. Bad, bad, bad. All bad. And he's living with pigs, and they're eating, and he doesn't even have a thing. He doesn't dare to eat the husk because the owner may just fire him and make him get out of there. I said, I wish I could eat that good. And then he thinks, about, my father's slaves. Now we would look back. Why would Jesus talk about slaves? Well, because it was part of the culture of the time. All right? So my father's slaves are better than this. I'm going to go home and ask my father to make me a slave, and I'll do better. Now, there's an interesting phrase there. It says, when he came to himself. In the newer translations, it says, when he came to his senses. I could have had a V8, kind of thing. He said, I'm going to do this. And he rehearses his speech. And if you read about it, it's the same. Father, I've sinned in your sight and God's, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me one of your servants, hired servants. The father interrupts him and says, no, you're my son. Get a robe for the boy. Get a ring for his finger. Put shoes or sandals on his feet. Now, why sandals on his feet? Because slaves didn't have shoes. Only family members got shoes. So you walked, your feet were bare and stuff. Now in this country we had people that had a pair of shoes, and they would walk in Perry County even. Back in the early times of Perry County, to get to church, you would walk to the church and then put your shoes on to go inside. Can you imagine that? Didn't want people to know how poor you were. Now if you go to some other places, they take their shoes off when you go in the house. But back then, you carried your shoes, put them on to go into church, so that you brought some dignity to the thing. Well, that's what's happening here. Kill the fatted calf. Bring the band out. We're going to have a party. My son was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. Now, there's an interesting word here, and we're going to finish up with that interesting word. He says, we call this the story of the prodigal son. Now, that word isn't found there in a thing. That's just a title that's been given to it, the prodigal son. What's that word prodigal mean? That's an extremely interesting word in this parable, because there are three applications to it. Prodigal means extravagantly wasteful. Extravagantly wasteful. Throwing away good money after bad money. That kind of thing. Now we think of the son as prodigal because he took the father's inheritance and wasted it. All of it, gone. But the father is very prodigal. Extravagant, wasteful. I can imagine the Pharisees saying, you fool, giving that money to your kid, that is wasteful. No, he's my son. He's my son. I cannot do otherwise. And so he gives it to him. Now, the other person, so we got a father who's prodigal in a positive way of trying to do the best he can for his son to save him from being lost and dead. Okay? But there's another person. It doesn't come out in our lesson, but that's the older brother. He's the one that stayed at home and worked and worked and worked and worked and kept the farm going for the dad. And when he hears the music and he asks what's going on and he finds out his brother's home, he's mad. He's very mad. He's extremely mad. He's extravagantly mad. He's got hate, nothing but hate. And it's wasteful. Hate just wastes us away. And so he goes to his father and he says, Father, I can't believe that you do this for this son of yours. And you know what the father said? Your brother has come back to life. Your brother. Do you get the difference? Not my son. Yes, he is my son. No problem. But he's your brother. And you've disowned him. But he's your brother because that's how I see it. He's still your brother. The Pharisees would have said, what a waste. What a waste of resources on that child. See, that's how they looked at the sinners and the publicans and all the others that were there. As just waste in life. In India, you have castes of people. At the top, very top, you have the Brahmin. They're the educated people. They're the rich people. They're the they're the priests, the Brahmin priests and stuff. They're at the top of the ladder. And then down below you have 2 or 3 other castes. But at the bottom, you have the untouchables. They are the worthless ones of India. They're the ones that clean up the chamber pots. They're the ones that get their living off the dump and stuff. Because they're not worth anything. And they're also the ones that find the Christian faith most appealing. Because it says you are worthy. You are worth dying for. You are worth going after and bringing home. See? And so the begins with D, and I can't remember it just went through my mind, but they are drawn to this God of love, who loves even, your story of the rejected people that Jesus called to himself. They thrive on that because it means they are loved as well. Well, we have to stop there at that point. Could get into the baptisms and talk about that, but we'll have to save that for another time. All right? We'll pray. Father, thank you for your grace to us this day and for loving us and calling us to love one another. In spite of who we are and in spite of who they are. Help us to do that. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, see you next week.